Hello and welcome to the Tennis Podcast and the first of 17 daily pods from the 2025 US Open. It's Fan Week. We are truly in the thick of it, which is why you can hear bangers playing in the background. Thank you, Mr. DJ. The draw is out and we have spent the day in and out of press conference rooms speaking to some of the theoretical runners and riders for the titles here in 17 days' time. Thank you to Josh in Kansas City for introducing today's show with beautiful, dulcet American tones, perfect for what's been a pretty beautiful day here in New York, David. Maintenance issues with our apartment aside.
Yes, those continue. More of that in future editions of the Tennis Podcast. No,
that'll get people staying tuned, David. Hear about the brown silt that's in my bathtub.
But, you know, the truth is everybody feels fresher than normal because the weather's not horrible. It's blue sky, beautiful sunny day, it's warm, but it's not unpleasant. And I hope that continues because this place can get debilitating for the players and for everybody working here when it's that horrible, sticky humidity. And it's not like that at the moment. I think that's helped players in qualifying. I mean, you can only imagine what it'd be like to go through 3 rounds of qualifying if it was like that and then go into the main draw. But I think that there's going to be some players bouncing out of that qualifying draw ready to do some damage in the early rounds, and I like that. I love the sort of chaos that creates, and here we go, folks.
I know we say it every year, but it's true every year and almost feels truer with every year that goes by. The whiplash of the Wimbledon to US Open transition and contrast just could not be greater.
And it really strikes me on a day like this, because at Wimbledon, there's no crowd in. You know, it's a few days before the tournament starts. We have the place to ourselves, basically, the journalists, a few people working there, you know, and there's a hush to it. And we walked in today and bang, we're hit with these you know, songs coming out of the speakers and people on stilts and
Irish dancing,
and it's like, wow, this is a very different vibe. And the truth is, Wimbledon is the outlier now. You know, like the US Open is sort of bigger than the others, I suppose, in that sense, and louder than the others. It's the most exaggerated, but Australian Open and French Open are more similar. You know, the hush, the quiet is very much a Wimbledon thing, increasingly so as they desperately try to, you know, put on a fan week when they eventually have the extra space. But that's going to be many, many years and until that actually comes to fruition. So yeah, going from Wimbledon to the US Open, I think, is pretty much the biggest whiplash and jarring difference that we get in this sport.
You've reminded me that we're yet to get a photo of David with someone on stilts, which is always a priority on a day like this.
Maybe they'll let me have a go on the stilts. and then I'll be able to go to the top of the Arthras Stadium without going up the escalator.
Folks, let's start with the draw, and we will smatter in our takeaways and our impressions and what various players have had to say in the press conference room today as and when they come up while discussing the draw. Media day is definitely not really so much of a thing anymore, is it? It's media couple of days. Like, there are still a lot of pretty significant players, including 2 of the tournament favourites, to come through tomorrow. Iga Swiatek, Carlos Alcaraz, they're both scheduled to come tomorrow. Jack Draper, a number of others as well. But we've spoken to quite a few today. Sabalenka, Coco Gauff, Jannik Sinner. So we'll bring that into it as and when. But let's use the draw as a framework, and let's start with the women. Who has a good draw on the women's side?
I think Iga Swiatek would jump out to me as someone who has a good draw here. Obviously, we knew off the back of her win in Cincinnati that she was going to be the number 2 seed. So kind of the big question for me of the women's draw was where Coco Gauff would land. And look, arguably you could say that that's bad news for Iga Swiatek because Coco Gauff landed in her half, and really though I think that's bad news for Coco Gauff. I think Gauff would have rather probably been in the Sabalenka half, given the way she's troubled her, and we know about the tricky head-to-head for Coco Gauff against Iga Swiatek when Iga Swiatek's playing well. But that's sort of looking at the latter stages of the tournament. I think if we look at the early stages, Iga Swiatek's got a good draw here. I'm not seeing too many names, too many types of players that would traditionally trouble Iga Swiatek in the early rounds. Kanonskaya is there as her first potential seed in the third round, who has got a win over her, but equally Swiatek beat her pretty easily very recently. Alexandra is in there, but she's never really able to bring her tour form to the majors. And then in the quarterfinals, there's a potential Wimbledon final rematch with Amanda Anisimova. And look, as much as I'm always big on Amanda Anisimova, given what we saw at Wimbledon, it'd be tough to say that feels like a tough draw for Iga Swiatek.
Matt made the bold prediction at our live show last night that if that match happens, it won't be as bad for Anisimova as it was last time.
I stand by that bold take. So I'm looking at Iga Swiatek here, coming in great form and not seeing too many really obvious threats to her early in this tournament. So, you ask who's got a good draw, my mind immediately out of the top seeds goes to Swiatek.
Let's talk about Coco Gauff for a moment. She's come out, as you say, in Iga Swiatek's half, so theoretically she would be a semi-final opponent for Iga Swiatek. She's in the Madison Keys quarter, so according to seed it would be a Gauff Keys quarter-final. But Coco Gauff has got Ajla Tomljanovic in round one, a round two with either Donna Vekic or Jessica Buthas-Monero, and then there's players like, your eyes immediately jump to Naomi Osaka as a potential, I think, third round opponent, fourth round opponent for Coco Gauff, whose press conference today was fascinating. She was the player I learnt the most from in press today, because some big Coco Gauff news has dropped this week. There have been big Coco Gauff developments. She has employed the biomechanist Gavin MacMillan, who's previously worked with Aryna Sabalenka and seemingly kind of fixed her serve 2 or 3 years ago. She has started working with him this week, the week before a Grand Slam. There have been videos circulating of her out there on the practice court in the rain making technical changes to her serve. It was interesting. She really laughed at the questions about her being out there in the rain. She said it was just drizzle, guys. It was only drizzle. She said, I wanted to get more reps in the indoor courts were booked. She was very open about this move in press today. She said it was a sudden decision. She said Gavin became available and I felt like I had to take that opportunity when it presented itself. She said, I had to make a change, so why wait? She said, I don't want to waste time playing a way that I don't want to play. She said, I'm obsessed with the process of getting better. I have a clear future where I see myself and I'm in a hurry to get there. And sort of on the subject of it being on the eve of a slam, she said, look, I hate to lose. So there was never going to be a good time to do this. And she kind of talked about, she didn't quite put it like this, but the sense I got was that she feels like because she's won a slam this year and she's had a pretty consistent year, she feels like it's already a good year. She's playing with house money now from now on. She said, I haven't got much to defend from this point onwards. Okay, she won the WTA finals last year, but up until that point, she hasn't got an awful lot to defend. She is treating this US Open as a free hit. Like, if making this drastic change now costs her chances at this US Open, that's priced into the decision. That is a consequence that she's prepared for, which I find fascinating.
Yeah, I don't know whether it's a good idea. I don't know whether it's going to work. Neither does she. But wow, do I admire it. I admire the ambition, the determination to just crack on with it. It also tells me how low she must have gone in terms of her sense of how she's serving and how she's playing. That is a drastic move to make on the eve of a Grand Slam, and to do it with so little time to actually make an impact. But then I think she is a player who has shown that with a change to the backroom team, she can make some drastic improvements as well. I mean, that happened with Brad Gilbert in a different way, but she was playing terribly at Wimbledon a couple of years ago, came out and didn't lose another match, basically, for about 2 months, and won the US Open. And I think that's an interesting one about the house money, the feeling that, well, I've got one under my belt, and I just want to get on with making myself the best possible player that I can be, not just worry about the record books and what they end up showing in the short term. I just end up admiring her for it, because she's not shying away from the issue, she's just facing it head on.
And it is interesting, isn't it, because she has shown herself to be someone who can still win matches, can still get through tournaments, even when she is serving a big number of double faults. Like, normally she ends up running into an opponent who's playing too well for the standard she's playing. She rarely actually wins the biggest titles when her serve is in that state, but she can still win matches, she can still win rounds. She could have, I think, very conceivably got through some matches here with the game that she had in Cincinnati, and yet she's made the change, as you said, kind of a long-term view of it. Clearly it's a problem that needs solving. Why not just solve it now? Let's see what the US Open brings. And I asked Aryna Sabalenka today in the press conference how long it took her to see changes with Gavin MacMillan and get her to a place where she was happier with her serve, and she said 2 weeks. She said 2 weeks of, she said, I was desperate. 2 weeks of incredibly hard work, doing whatever it was he told me, fully buying into what he was telling me, and I saw a big difference. And I think it's going to be hard for Coco Gauff, with a Grand Slam going on at the same time, to see really meaningful change in such a short space of time. But that answer from Sabalenka did suggest to me that, okay, maybe the US Open we might still see some problems, but there's definitely a potential bright end to the season for Coco Gauff. So obviously Sabalenka stressed every player is different. It might take Coco Gauff longer than it took me, and that's absolutely a fair point. But I'd sort of had it in mind that it took Sabalenka longer than that. I could have had it in mind that technical changes are really, really hard things to do and implement and make a meaningful difference to your game. It really strikes me as a big, long-term kind of project, but the way Sabalenka put it wasn't really like that. So that's going to be a fascinating part to see whether Gauff's improvement is at the same rate.
It's fascinating listening to both Sabalenka and Gauff, how huge the mental aspect is to making a technical change, making a big technical change, which is obviously what Gauff is looking to do on the serve. Sabalenka, when she was talking about that period when she worked with Gavin MacMillan, she said, I was desperate, I was willing to do anything. And while Coco Gauff didn't use the same language, she was kind of saying the same thing. She was like, it's more important to me than winning a US Open, potentially, or reaching a semi-final of a US Open. She hadn't made this change, she would be in all of our mixes, I think. We wouldn't be picking her as the favourite, but I don't think any of us wouldn't have had her in the mix, despite her form and the state of her serve and her game. And yet she's got this urgency to, well, as she says, get better. I'm obsessed with the process of getting better, and you've got to be, sorry to use all the therapy speak, but you've got to be willing, you've got to be open to change in order for any of this to work. You've got to have the humility to be prepared to do what's required. And same as you, David, and I'm sure you as well, Matt, just so full of admiration for her. She is a Grand Slam champion this year, this summer. She could so easily be I'm fine, thanks, okay, I'm not in my best form right now, but I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing because I'm doing just fine, thank you very much. But she wants to be a better version of herself, and it's super cool. And
yet I haven't got her coming through that section of the draw, personally. I feel very bullish about Naomi Osaka for this tournament, and I think...
Tell us why.
I just think Osaka's shown the levels of improvement on the court that I was looking for. I know it all ended pretty sourly and sadly in a way in that final against Victoria Mboko, and the whole on-court speech not going well and not doing press conference afterwards. Then she didn't, but she owned it, in a subsequent posts that she put out and interview. I just think she's in form again, and she's remembering how to win. I think she needs to get on a bit of a roll. I mean, it's important to get that momentum going. But I've always thought there's one more Grand Slam in Naomi Osaka, and I think that this could well be it. I think she's going to come through that section of the draw with Gauff, end up playing Gauff, win that, and end up playing Keys. I know it probably sounds like quite a long shot, but that's where I'm thinking.
Where do you stand on Osaka, Matt? She's got Greeton Minnan in round 1, potential round 2 with Hailey Baptiste or Katerina Siniakova.
Yeah, both of those dangerous opponents, I think. Particularly keen to see Baptiste against Osaka. I think that would be some phenomenal shot making. I absolutely agree on the improvements that we saw from Naomi Osaka through Montreal. I thought she was moving a lot better. I think I've liked the vibes with Karofsky in her camp. I'm generally positive about that trajectory. I'm far less sort of confident about her chances in terms of going really, really deep here. I think what we saw in that Montreal final was something that I'm not sure is going to go away in just a few weeks. It was pretty alarming the way things fell apart there. I think spoke to a pretty deep lack of kind of self-esteem, and for someone who so often rose to those big moments, she's not been someone who has had a load of Grand Slam quarterfinals and semi-finals in her career, Naomi Osaka. When she's got to the latter stages of tournaments in the first part of her career, she ended up winning them. She rose to those big moments, and what we saw in Montreal was so far from that player. So I like what I've seen in terms of the game, but to me, I'm not sure she's necessarily ready to go all the way and win a major again just yet. But it's an incredibly exciting section of the draw with Gauff and with Osaka and with Madison Keys, and it feels quite an open section. It's Madison Keys' quarter, so her scheduled round of 16 opponent would be Karolina Mukovic. She's got Venus Williams in round 1. That's a blockbuster. Marta Kostyuk is in this section. Linda Noskova, Ava Lees, Sorana Kostaya, retiring Petra Kvitova, who is, by all accounts, a joy in her press conference earlier on today. Is Madison Keys in everyone's mix?
Yeah, she would be. I don't make her the favourite. I don't think she will win it, but I wouldn't be surprised if she did, because she's done it. She's also performed well here, reached the final here before. Feels like she's probably in the best mental state to handle what's expected of American players, high-profile American players, that she's ever been. I am convinced by the Madison Keys health, the way she's been all year, but I struggled to see lightning striking twice. And I think that's what happened at the start of the year. She pulled that off. Good for her. If she did it again, I'd be delighted for her. But I think it's going to be Osaka, because I realised her second round would concern me if she played either Baptiste or Siniakova. But yeah, I am just so interested in not just the top couple of names this time. I mean, I think the women's draw there's always intrigue and there are always interesting matchups, but I think there are actually quite a few players who could go all the way here.
Who have we got in the top half then? That's an intriguing name that could go all the way. This obviously is Sabalenka's half. She sits at the top of the draw. Her scheduled quarter-final opponent would be Jasmine Paolini, but I've got an awful feeling that we're going to do an underestimating Jasmine Paolini thing here, because also in this section is Elena Rybakina, Veronika Kudermetova, Emma Raducanu, Leylah Fernandez. Who would like to put their hand up to underestimate Jasmine Paolini first?
I think I'm about to do the ultimate underestimating Jasmine Paolini. So I'm going to tell you a fact which makes a strong case for Jasmine Paolini, which is that she has a winning record over Elena Rybakina, and that's a potential last 16 match likelihood to face Aryna Sabalenka in the quarterfinals. So you could think, okay, well, maybe Jasmine Paolini's going to be the one to face Aryna Sabalenka. And yet, despite that, I think it will be Elena Rybakina to face Aryna Sabalenka. So that is me doing the ultimate underestimating Jasmine Paolini, because I'm aware of the facts, and yet I'm kind of going against them. But I tell you what, Sabalenka, she did not want to see Elena Rybakina in her section. You know?
I was going to say, the fact that you think that will be the quarter-final, Rybakina against Sabalenka, does that mean you think Rybakina is coming through this quarter? Because I know you find the head-to-head between Rybakina and Sabalenka pretty compelling for Rybakina. I mean, it's hard not to. Like, it speaks for itself.
Yeah, I think a lot of Sabalenka's recent wins over Rybakina have been tight, whereas quite a lot of Rybakina's wins over Sabalenka have actually been blowouts. Rybakina has an ability to just actually hit Sabalenka off the court, which is quite something when we think of Sabalenka as one of the main power players on tour, and she thinks of herself as that. She prides herself on being that. Yet the smoothness of Rybakina's power and the ability to turn that back on Sabalenka has really troubled her a lot in the past. But I think, yes, I'm a believer in that head-to-head being tricky, but I'm such a believer in Sabalenka in terms of getting to the latter stages of slams. That record speaks for itself as well. You know, like, the doubts I have over Sabalenka are not actually in those first 4 or 5 rounds. You know, it's the latter stages. I think if they were to meet here, it would be much more like their matches where Sabalenka's won through very tight fashion. You know, I think she's going to bring it. I would back her to just get through Rybakina. And I think with Rybakina,
potential round 3 against Raducanu, Rybakina.
Yeah, which is very interesting. On any given day, I'm not confident that Rybakina is going to bring the top level. You know, whereas I'm more confident at a slam that Sabalenka's going to bring it. So I still have Sabalenka as the big favourite in this section, but Rybakina is definitely a threat.
Opens against Rebecca Masarova, does Aryna Sabalenka, and then there's a potential Polina Kudermetova in round 2, Leylah Fernandez potentially in round 3. David, you and I went to ask Aryna Sabalenka the same question in press today. I had to cancel my question because you asked it, and then I thought of another one. And Matt was going to ask that one, so it was all... Anyway, we were all on the same wavelength with what we wanted to know from Aryna Sabalenka. Tell everyone what you asked her and what you made of the response.
I wanted to know, given how dominant she is in the rankings this year, how consistent she's been, whether if she ended the year without a Grand Slam title, and bear in mind she's 0 for 3 for Grand Slam titles this year, whether that would be tough for her to take. And I actually thought, I mean, my personal view is that I think it would be pretty devastating for her. Her natural inclination would be to really be pissed off at that and feel like she'd blown it or let herself down or not got what she deserved because of all the effort she puts in and how good she believes she can be and is. But she actually very artfully handled that question, I thought, and as though she'd probably... she often references how much she's learnt from this year, and I think whenever she does that, she's referencing all the fuss that happened after the French Open final and the situation she got herself into with the Coco Gauff lack of respect and lack of kind of giving credit, and because I think that really bothered her at the time. I think it hurt her pride, hurt her sort of sense of justice, and she was upset, and she felt like she'd said something, and she was in big trouble, and I think with everybody, with the crowd, and she didn't like it, and I think she keeps bringing it up because it shows you how much it bothers her, and I think probably she had to go through quite a process to come out the other side of that, and part of it is to learn how to be a bit kinder to herself, even if it's just speaking it into existence, about if she doesn't actually pull this off and win the US Open, she's got to be okay with it. And I think it's quite sensible to have got to that state, even if I think inside she'd be burning.
Do you see it being a Rybakina Sabalenka quarterfinal, or would you like to estimate Jasmine Paolini?
No, I wouldn't.
Why break the habit of a lifetime?
No, listen, I feel bad about that, but I mean, I still think Elena Rybakina head-to-head should be winning that match on a hard court in America. And I think the form she showed the other week I would make her favourite to do so. I do think that the Sabalenka-Rybakina is going to happen. Oh, I think I might have gone for Rybakina to win that last night in the live show. I feel really on the edge either way with that one.
Yeah, and the potential round 3 with Raducanu for Rybakina is interesting. She came through the main press conference room today. Very well attended press conference, and it's clear Emma Raducanu feels very good about finally getting the reps in as a tour player. She feels good about this hard court summer she's had. She mentioned the Sabalenka match in Cincinnati a lot. She is taking so much validation from the fact that she was able to make that as close as she was. And she said she also referenced the Sabalenka match she played at Wimbledon, which was obviously 2 very tight sets. And it was after that match that she was seeking out a new coach, and her agent Jill Smoller, who of course worked with Serena Williams for a very, very long time, she suggested Francisco Roig. And it was interesting, the turn of phrase she used here. She said, I feel like the way I played in that Sabalenka match at Wimbledon helped my case in getting him to agree to work with me. And I found kind of what that revealed about the balance of power in that conversation was interesting. I don't know, I might have thought that somebody like Francisco Roig, who, he's got Rafael Nadal on his CV, but he's not got a long CV. I wouldn't have thought that he could pick up the phone and work with whoever he fancied working with, but Raducanu obviously felt like the ball was in his court.
She's an interesting case, Raducanu, because she's a total one-off in that she's already had this career high that so many good players never have. And if you pick up the sort of baton to be coaching Emma Raducanu, you're always going to be compared to that. And so maybe that makes it more difficult in a way to get coaches to commit and to has she got that in her again, or was that a one-off?
And I suppose she also has, and I think she would accept this, now a reputation for not staying with coaches for long periods, and that's her approach to coaching, that's her team's approach to coaching. We had Max Heisenbud tell us about it on the show, didn't it? Their approach is, mine them for their expertise and then mine someone else for their expertise, and fair enough, but coaches will know that you're not getting job security with this role, and that all feeds into the power dynamic as well. And there were moments of real revelation about Raducanu today. Some of it was very sort of rehearsed and media trained, but there were some good moments as well. She was asked a lot about Francisco Roig and that partnership and what she hopes to get from it. And she was asked about, the Rafael Nadal of it all. Are you desperately trying to mine him for information about one of the greatest of all time and trying to learn from that sort of second hand via Francisco Roig, who is so embedded in that camp for so long? And she kind of said no, and she said, I don't want to pry, which very polite, lovely, but if true, and it's possible she just sort of didn't want to go there or get into it, but if true, and I did sort of get the sense that it was true, a curious answer, I thought. Like, what are you paying him for if not to pry into what he knows about greatness and elite sporting success from working with Rafael Nadal? It was an interesting moment. And I don't quite know what conclusions to draw from it. The other line or sort of answer from her press conference was her revealing that how much she didn't enjoy returning here in 2022, defending her title. She lost to Cornet, I think, didn't she? And it was a tough watch. And she actually said this year is the first time I've come here and felt able to enjoy it and enjoy the memories that I made here 4 years ago.
Wow.
Which is kind of sad. Like, okay, good that you're happy now, but there's a lot going on there. The second quarter of the women's draw is the last one yet to be discussed. I feel like this is quite a land of opportunity. This might be the section you'd want to be in if you were sort of an under-the-radar dark horse, perhaps.
Yes, I think so. If you were Victoria Mboko, perhaps, who does find herself in this section, and I think is... she's not a dark horse because everyone is probably going to be looking at her in this section, given what she did in Canada, given how great and obvious her talent is, and, as you said, given the fact that the two highest seeds in this section, I think, have some question marks against them. One of them is Mira Andreeva, and mostly the question mark is we've not seen her much, really. We saw her carrying Daniil Medvedev in the mixed doubles, but that's about it, really, in the last few weeks, because she's not been fit. So kind of, where's her level at? I don't expect it to be as high as it was at in the spring, where she was winning 1,000 titles. I think expecting that here would probably be going a bit far, but we know she's a great player, so she could come through this section. It wouldn't be a great surprise, but equally it wouldn't be a great surprise if she didn't. And then you've got Jessica Pegula at the top of this section, who ordinarily going into a Grand Slam, certainly this time last year, I absolutely would have been penciling in, through the rounds, like Jessica Pegula, she's so reliable. Okay, she had a quarter-final hurdle that she hadn't got over, but she did get over it, won better and reached the final here last year, so she's defending all those points. But she's just changed a little bit as a player. She's not been as consistent this year. She has taken some pretty strange losses at the slams, I think, this year, to Cocchiaretto and Danilovic and Boisson. These are players who you would expect her to kind of take care of at the slams, but she's been upset by them, and she comes in with 2 wins, 2 losses on the American hard courts. So I don't feel that confident in Jessica Pegula. She's also got potentially Belinda Bencic in the 4th round, who she's never won a set against, so that's not an ideal draw for her.
That's one of tennis's weird and wonderful head-to-heads, isn't it?
It is. You would have thought that would be quite an even head-to-head, but actually Bencic has dominated it. So kind of for all those reasons, the name I'm drawn to most in this section is Mboko. I spoke a lot about how Canada felt like everything coming together at the right time, her confidence, the crowd. It feels like maybe things are continuing to come together with this section that she's ended up in here. And of course, the fact that she's got herself seeded, having such a big jump in the ranking, she's sort of, let's see if she can really make the most of that. It's going to be fascinating.
By drawn to, do you mean coming through? Coming through this section, reaching the semi-finals? Right now, that's my pick.
With a Wimbledon champion in the first round.
But a Wimbledon champion who, last time we saw her, could not move. She was really struggling with her left foot, wasn't she?
Yeah, Krejcikova,
that is. The level Krejcikova's brought this summer in the matches that she has won and when she has been fit, quite impressive. And when she's got a point to prove, Barbora Krejcikova, never is she more dangerous. I just am not banking on her fitness, really. I think Mboko is also capable of beating her even if she is fit. Like, it would be very, very tricky. But I'm just not confident in that fitness for Krejcikova. But it's absolutely, I think, one of the standout first round matches in this draw. And there wasn't if you allow me to have a mini rant about the US Open draw, we didn't get a ooh or a ooh la la or a drawing of breath because we got all 256 names presented to us at once.
In a PDF
at midday. Absolutely pathetic. But had the draw been done properly, this would have been a real moment when those two names came out against each other.
You're right. We've been denied.
Yeah.
David, where do you stand? Disco David, where does he stand on Victoria Mboko?
Well, I've got her in the semi-finals of the tournament.
That's the Disco David I know and love.
And yet I could imagine a scenario where she loses in the first round.
Yeah,
I think that those are both perfectly reasonable predictions.
I think so.
Or expectations, but I find her so convincing as an athlete, as a player, and there's a freshness to her coming on the circuit. And there are a lot of players in that section of the draw that you've talked about there. Andreeva would be normally the player I would be picking to face Pegula in the quarterfinals, but I don't feel there's something not quite right about what I'm seeing from Andreeva the last couple of months. I think maybe she hit the wall a bit. She had a lot of success in the springtime. Maybe there's massive expectations and so forth, and coming into the other Grand Slams, she had the really tough situation against Boisson and Roland Garros. She just doesn't look quite the same at the moment. I'm very sure she's going to come back, whereas Mboko looks like this force out on the court, and I'm thinking, wow, I think this is her debut at this tournament, and yet she seems like she's been here before. It's a bit Raducanu-esque, and I think she's going to go through this section of the draw and end up in the semis.
So you have an Osaka Mboko, no, different. So you have an Mboko Sabalenka. You have an Mboko Rybakina semi-final?
Correct.
And an Osaka Keys semi-final?
No, an Osaka Keys quarter-final, and then eventually Swiatek against Osaka in the semi-finals.
Dear. And Matt, you've got?
I don't know if I've been quite as thorough as David in terms of mapping out the whole thing, but
well, you see,
I've got Iga Swiatek winning it.
Yeah.
I've got Osaka winning it, all of it.
I love that. I think it's absolute insanity, but I love it. Okay.
We've been there before.
Disco David, what can I say?
Yeah.
Okay, folks, that's it for part one in the women's draw. Join us in part two when we'll go through the men's. Before that, though, we wanted to introduce you to Steve Fergal's International Tennis Tours, as if they need an introduction. They are supporting the tennis podcast throughout this US Open. Steve Fergal's, together with On Location, set the standard for tennis travel, bringing fans closer than ever to the sport they and we love. They'll arrange your deluxe accommodations, daily transfers to the tennis, and of course incredible seats with access to hospitality lounges at the world's biggest tournaments. We've been in some of those lounges. They're a delight.
They are, yeah. We had a great time.
Yeah, cocktails with kind of fun things in the cocktails with tennis balls on the end of them. Fun stuff happening in there. You can get that at the Australian Open, Roland Garros, Wimbledon, US Open, Indian Wells, everywhere that's worth going to, basically. And 2026 marks the 50th anniversary of Steve Fergal's International Tennis Tours. Happy anniversary, Steve. So to celebrate, they're adding unique extras like stunning excursions to local landmarks throughout the year. If that sounds good, and of course it does, go to tours4tennis.com/podcast. That is tours, the number 4 tennis.com/podcast, and check out what they have to offer and book your trip. Welcome back to part 2 of the tennis podcast, where the party really is getting started over on the Fan Week stage. We're moving slowly towards Disco David being invited up.
DJ Ty Alexander up there at the moment. and no doubt waiting for DJ David to come and join him.
Yeah, it's a big DJ scene.
Yeah.
The US Open. I don't hate it. A bit of an Ibiza vibe.
Yes, never been there. Never gonna.
Does that mean Carlos Alcaraz is going to win the 2025 US Open? Or, Matt, does it mean he's going to lose in the first round to Riley Opelka?
I'm a bit worried about Riley Opelka. I did physically recoil when I saw that among the 256 names in the various draws. Look, I think he'll be fine. I think he'll beat Riley Opelka. I'm not predicting Riley Opelka to beat Carlos Alcaraz. But you don't want Riley Opelka in round one. I know we've talked about Alcaraz's various ups and downs in matches and all this kind of thing, and we've been on high alert for another Botic van der Zandschulp situation happening. The truth is, he's actually been remarkably consistent this year. He's put together 7 finals in a row now. He has slightly got rid of that tag, that we perhaps had next to his name this time last year, as being someone who can just kind of lose to anyone. So I am backing him to beat Opelka, but he is going to have to concentrate. He is going to have to play well in some big moments.
I can just imagine him smiling if you said that to him.
Opelka,
I know he's in and out of form and all that kind of thing. He's not
going to miss 7 serves in a row, though, is he, Riley Opelka?
No, and
I know someone that might, though.
He just beat Alex de Minaur, did Riley Opelka. Someone he'd never beaten in his career. It's one of the best wins of Riley Opelka's career that he's just had. I think he's a dangerous opponent, and you just don't want that if you're Carlos Alcaraz. But maybe
he does.
Maybe he's so aware of the threat, it's so you know what you're going to get, and that allows him to lock in. Maybe he overlooked Botic van der Zandschulp last year.
It's Botic.
Yeah, this guy's been hopelessly out of form. I'll be fine. Certainly that's what we were thinking. Whereas you can't really overlook Riley Opelka. It's so obvious what he's going to do, so obvious how you prepare for that match. Maybe that focuses him, and actually it's not too much of a bad draw. But yeah, it just made me a bit jumpy.
Understandably so. I remember when we were bigging up Thomas Mahatch at the start of the year, the best player in the world.
Feels quite a long time ago, that,
in inverted commas.
Haven't mentioned him for about 3 months.
Huge talent, but then he's up against Riley Opelka, and I thought, there's no way Mahatch is going to concentrate long enough to win this match, and he's going to be close, and then suddenly he'll lose 1 point in a tie-break 3 times and lose this match. And actually, he did the opposite to Opelka. I think it was 4 sets, or maybe 5, but I think it was 4, and there were tie breaks, and he said he concentrated really hard on his own serve. I always think it's the other way around. Surely you're concentrating really hard on your return because you're trying to figure out where to break the guy, but no, it's more sort of inverted. You concentrate on your own serve. He's not a very good returner, so you win your own service games. That puts pressure on him as well and gives you chances when you get to those tie breaks, and that's what Alcaraz has got to do. He's got the brilliance and the athleticism and the inspiration to get those couple of points here and there that he needs. I think Alcaraz will be okay.
Theoretically, his quarterfinal would be against Ben Shelton, and very theoretically, his 4th round opponent would be Daniil Medvedev, although he unfortunately has drawn Benjamin Bonzi in round 1, who is the man, of course, who beat him in round 1 of the last slam. Is he going to do the Bonzi double? Or is Bonzi going to do the Medvedev double? I think he might,
I think he might, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Bonzi's got better since...
Medvedev.
Yeah.
He's
exactly the sort of player Medvedev's been consistently losing to. Will we get Alcaraz Shelton in that quarterfinal?
I say yes.
I say yes too. The biggest obstacle for Shelton would be probably Casper Ruud or Jiri Lehečka. Shelton just beat Lehečka, didn't he, very recently. Ruud hasn't been in great form really, so I do see Shelton coming through there, and I think Shelton has lost to Alcaraz and Sinner this year at the Slams. He's lost to Sinner when he's gone on to win the title, and Alcaraz when he's gone on to win the title at the Slams. I think playing Alcaraz at the US Open would feel like a much better shot for Shelton than playing Sinner at Wimbledon and Sinner at the Australian Open for me.
Yeah, it's best case scenario this for Shelton.
I think that would be night session. Like, let's he can try and turn it into sort of match that he wants. I still would back Alcaraz, but I would really like to see Shelton in that environment.
Can I have Mute against Shelton?
Yeah, I was going to say he'll have to get through Corentin Moutet in round 3.
I want that. Okay. No offence to Pablo Carreno Busta or Jordan Thompson or qualifier ×2 that are in the way of that potentially happening.
I think Jordan Thompson is going to find this US Open far too woke.
I don't want any of those people to get in the way. Or even Talon Griekspoor, and I've got a soft spot for him. I want Moutet against Shelton in round 3, please.
I feel like I should mention Casper Ruud in this section just to beat the allegations.
That you don't like him?
I'm just not moved by him. There's no hate there at all. What's he going to do?
Lose to Ben Shelton.
In the 4th round?
Yes.
Yeah. Not Corentin Moutet.
No. I think I back Shelton because he does tend to meet the people he's supposed to meet.
Absolutely.
And then he can't quite do it against them because he's not as good as them. That's what's happened so far in his career anyway.
Staying with the bottom half of the draw, so the top of the bottom half, the third quarter, if you like, this is where you find Novak Djokovic, and he would be seeded to meet Taylor Fritz in this quarter-final. It's a nightmare for Taylor Fritz.
Yeah, he's never beaten Novak Djokovic.
Yeah.
And is it a nightmare for us? I'm not enthralled by the
I don't want that match at all.
Of Djokovic. No. Fritz in the quarters.
But this is first round aside, sort of big picture, this is a good draw for Djokovic, who'd have wanted Alcaraz rather than Sinner in the semi-final. He'd definitely sign up for Taylor Fritz in the quarter-final. The problem might be round 1/early rounds for Djokovic.
Yeah, I mean, he's drawn Lerner Tien. That's a very fun first round match, I think. Tien, who has a winning record on the year, his kind of first year on tour, I think that's pretty impressive. But the most impressive thing is his record against the top players this year. He's 4-1 against the top 10, is Lerner Tien. Medvedev, Zverev, Shelton and Rublev, he's got wins against them. Now, obviously, Novak Djokovic is in a different category to all of those players. Yes, he's top 10, but he's an all-time great, and I do back Novak Djokovic to figure that out. I think you need a bit of a weapon, I think, still to be able to beat Novak Djokovic. Like, Tien can beat you with courtcraft and can beat you with creativity and imagination. I don't know whether he can beat Novak Djokovic with those things. All those aspects of Novak Djokovic, I think, are tremendously underrated. He's so good when he gets involved in those sorts of matches, and he's also able to constrict someone like Tien and stop them being able to play with such creativity as he might be able to against a Zverev or a Medvedev, for example. So I am backing Djokovic to come through it, even though he's wearing a sleeve. We haven't seen him since Wimbledon.
He was even wearing the sleeve
there
when throwing the first pitch.
And not very well.
At a Yankees game?
I imagine he didn't... Yeah, Yankees game. I imagine he didn't want to go full pelt with his serving arm on a pitch.
He went very much half pelt, if not less.
I don't think they tend to throw those very hard. I think they are very ceremonial, those things.
But he was wearing a sleeve while he was doing it. It just looked a bit...
It wasn't a flex, put it that way.
No. I think Tien will keep him out there for a while, and there'll be some moments that you think, oh, what's wrong with Novak Djokovic? And then he'll be all right. But I actually think that if Fritz doesn't have a good chance this time, he never will.
I feel like his chances feel like they get better every time he plays Djokovic, in a way, or they in theory they should, because
age.
Of Djokovic's age, quite frankly. And
Fritz is at his peak pretty much now.
And yet it just seems like there's so much scar tissue there, so much baggage.
And it's a tough matchup just generally for Fritz, isn't it? Because he gets put off balance.
What does he do better than Novak Djokovic? Even at 38-year-old Novak Djokovic?
Well, he's better at being in his 20s. I mean...
So's Matt.
You know...
That is something I have over Novak Djokovic.
And look, Fritz is a very good player. It does feel like his best game just sort of feeds Novak Djokovic rather than hurting him. But I do feel like if Fritz could go out there and really believe his youth and the fact that he's at the peak of his career and Djokovic is kind of hanging on to his best days, or not even those really. He still can produce incredible tennis, but the guy has not played. So he only plays Grand Slams. I don't know whether you can keep getting away with that.
Yeah, and he really, most of his press conference today was popping off at 2-week-long Masters events. I mean, look, I don't think he'd be playing a whole lot of 1,000 events, even if they were the same length they used to be, but it's pretty clear that them being 2 weeks long is a total turn off to him, and feels pretty strongly that they're a terrible turn of events for the sport. But he called out not anybody in particular. He called out. He said his understanding is that there's not really much point in trying to lobby for any change because the contracts are signed, the deal is done. He said there are 30-year-long contracts for those events to be structured that way, which is a pretty extraordinary thought. But he kind of said, oh, well, you know, it's one thing all these players coming into press and saying all this now, but like when the negotiations were being done, nobody was really prepared to put the time and the energy on the line required to prevent this from happening or to adjust things at all. And yeah, I think he's got a really, really fair point there. He would potentially face Francis Tiafoe in round 4. Also a possible Holger Rune loitering, although Holger Rune's got Bertik van der Zandschulp in round 1. He's coming in just optimal form to take out a seed in the first round.
Yeah, fresh off losing a 6-love set against Sebastian Baez on a hard court.
Yeah, got him.
He's primed and ready.
He's got everyone right where he wants them. Tiafoe, Djokovic, 4th round?
Yeah, I'd like to see it. I mean, Tiafoe did pull up with his back a couple of weeks ago in Cincinnati. He certainly didn't look very good in mixed doubles the other day. Don't know how much to read into that. But this is the place that he wants to play his best tennis more than any other. Tiafoe against Rune, I think that is a heck of a clash if it happens for the right to face Djokovic. Despite all that I've said about Djokovic and the fact that I think Fritz has the best chance he's going to have, I still have Djokovic in the semis.
Losing in the semis to Alcaraz?
Losing in the semis to Alcaraz, yeah.
But as you said, Catherine, it's the best scenario, I think, here for Novak Djokovic. Alcaraz is half. I think he's got a better shot of beating Alcaraz than he has of beating Sinner. And, you know, not having to face one of those in the quarterfinals so that it takes stuff out of him for if he does get through them in the later rounds like we saw in Australia. You know, he had nothing left against Zverev. So I think kind of all the Grand Slam draws he's had this year, Novak Djokovic, I think this is the best one in terms of how he's ended up landing with respect to Alcaraz and Sinner.
He'd have liked this draw at one of the other slams, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
We got a Mensik Jarry tennis podcast coded first round that we got in trouble for not mentioning at last night's live show, so I'm just going to mention it to get out ahead of the criticism on this show. We got Joel Fonseca in Taylor Fritz's section. He was brought to press today and put in far too small an area.
He took up the whole area.
When will the people learn that lots of people, just forevermore now, regardless of what he does, are going to want to speak to Joel Fonseca?
It was the media equivalent of some of his court schedules. You know, that one in Miami when they had to sort of suddenly move him and get him into the big stadium, and that caused a great scene earlier this season. It was giving that.
Let's move on to the top half of the men's draw. Let's talk about Jannik Sinner. He's obviously at the top of the draw. Vic Capriva for him in round 1, potential round 2 with Alexei Popyrin, and a Tommy Paul 4th round, and a Jack Draper quarter-final, according to seeding, of course.
Yes, it's a fascinating section of the draw, that, to me, because of the unknown about Draper in particular. The guy just hasn't played since Wimbledon, which is, that is a problem for him.
But he looked so good in the mixed doubles.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And how much do we draw?
You were... I know there's no way of knowing until we see. The proof will be in the pudding. But you were pretty bullish about the scenario, David, where this injury, provided it is healed and he's good to go, could end up being a good thing for Jack Draper. Enforced time on the sidelines to refresh mid-season, look at Jannik Sinner, isn't a bad thing with the way tennis is structured.
There's quite a big disparity in Draper when he's unleashed and when he looks like he's not in his own head, and when he's not maybe ground down by the relentlessness of the tour or physical ailments, compared to right now in that mixed doubles. He looked like, just give me the ball, I'm going to make mincemeat out of it. And he looked like he could hit the ball bigger than everybody he faced. And I don't know how sustainable that is, because it's a fine balance, because you've got to have enough robustness to get through the rounds, and if he has long matches, is he going to hit the wall at some point, because those matches are not in his legs already from previous weeks. But I think he looks dangerous, so I'm fascinated by that. I mean, and actually when I look at Sinner's draw generally, I do see threats. Sometimes I see good players that I just don't regard as threats, whereas here you've got potentially Alexei Popyrin in the second round. Significantly, Alexander Bublik is in his section and could be a 4th round opponent, and then could be Draper in the quarters. So those are players that on their day can hurt you. I still think Sinner comes through it, but it's at least an interesting draw for Jannik Sinner here.
It does remind me of Roland Garros a little bit, where I remember being desperate for Sinner Draper there, quarter-final. Draper had been in such good form through the spring, playing really well, obviously, Indian Wells, Madrid, I was hyped for that potential match, and then along came Alexander Bublik and played 90 of the greatest minutes of tennis you will ever see to beat Jack Draper, and then suddenly we had Bublik Sinner instead of Draper Sinner. Obviously, since then, Bublik's got a win over Sinner in Halle, so that remains intriguing. But I must say, I'm not as high on Bublik on hard courts as a threat. I think I'm not
sure he is either.
No, I mean,
based on his scheduling post Wimbledon.
He took advantage of those weaker fields on the clay, won back-to-back titles incredibly emphatically, and then just hasn't played. But I think there's something about the chaotic nature of his game that disrupts more on the natural surfaces. I think on a hard court, I would be stunned if he beats Jannik Sinner. I think a little part of me was wondering how Jannik Sinner's going to be after this virus. I thought he absolutely sort of quashed any notion that will be a problem for him in the press conference. He said he's fine.
He looked fine, didn't he?
He looked fine, he sounded fine. He said he's not quite 100% yet, but he's been hitting. I think he's going to be...
He's not worried.
Absolutely ready to go here. And the difference in his body language and demeanour this year compared to that equivalent press conference last year, where he was having to explain to the world what had happened with his doping violation, and you could feel it, the heaviness of him, whereas the lightness of him now is so notable.
Yeah, he's been doing lots of, as they all do, lots of sponsor appearances this week. We have unfortunately seen Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz playing pickleball. Was it Jannik Sinner?
No, it was Alcaraz and Fritz.
Well, pickleball has been happening.
We've also seen Alcaraz being sort of blessed by a priest.
It's the most uncomfortable I've seen Carlos Alcaraz look, sort of being doorstepped by...
having heard his Apelka in round 1.
No, it was ping pong. I saw Jannik Sinner playing at some sort of sponsory thing, and he looked like Carlos Alcaraz does. It was big golden retriever energy, and like he always looked this time last year like he was dealing with it all brilliantly, but he never looked like this, like happy.
No,
it's such a contrast.
And he was asked in his press conference about his kind of rivalry with Alcaraz. He was asked to sort of sum it up, and his face kind of lit up. He's aware of how special the rivalry is as well, and he spoke about, he says, honestly, the only thing that's the same between the two of us is how hard we work to try to maximise and be the best we can be at tennis. Otherwise, we're totally different. But you can tell he really likes Carlos Alcaraz. Carlos clearly likes him, and they love the fact that they've got this rivalry together. It's a really cool thing, that.
And I did hear a great stat today from our friend and colleague Matt Trollope, who told me that if Sinner and Alcaraz were to meet here in the final, they would be the first pair in men's Open era history to play 3 Grand Slam finals against each other in the same calendar year. Which I immediately reacted to that and just thought, surely some combination of the big 3 did that. You know, it felt like they were always meeting in Grand Slam finals, but no, it hasn't happened in the Open era in the men's game, and it hasn't happened in the women's game since Venus and Serena. So it's a very rare thing to do. You mentioned at the live show last night, David, how many times did we come into the US Open expecting Federer and Nadal to certainly probably meet in the final, and it just didn't happen. It feels like, in contrast to the women's draw, where there are lots of possible winners, you know, lots of possible names that we're looking at that could do well here, the men's draw, it's all about Sinner and Alcaraz and whether they're going to meet. And I have certainly kind of just assumed that will probably happen, but it would be pretty sort of history defying. And I just wonder whether we're in for a shock that none of us are seeing coming here. You know, like, sustaining this level of constantly meeting in big finals is rare, and I think they're good enough to be able to do it. I do expect it to happen, but just be warned.
Except Riley Apelka is the shock that we all are seeing coming, so is it even a shock? Last section of the men's draw to cover, the second quarter, so the quarterfinalists from here would theoretically meet the Jannik Sinner section quarterfinalist. The seeded quarterfinal at the top is Sinner and Draper. The seeded quarterfinal in this second section would be Alexander Zverev against Alex de Minaur. It is, David, a dream draw for Alexander Zverev.
I don't think he could have handpicked a better selection of prospective opponents than he has right here. Right from the beginning, he starts against Alejandro Tibillo, who has won 5 out of 17 matches this year. Second round, Bautista Agut or Jacob Fernley. Zverev's won his last 12 sets against those two players combined. Third round could be Gael Monfils or Felix Auger-Aliassime. You know, players that are really good, but I'd be surprised. I mean, Zverev should be beating these guys. He should beat everybody in his path, including Andrei Rublev in the 4th round, and probably Alex de Minaur or Karen Khachanov in the quarterfinals. I know Khachanov got a win against him in Canada, but that was match point to Zverev, and it was a net cord that denied him. Zverev should be in the semi-finals. There's just no other outcome that I think he could accept there, and I think that we should expect. Yes, Alex de Minaur is a very good player. It just strikes me that Zverev has got exactly what he wants here, and he should be playing Sinner in the semi-finals, and if he doesn't, it's a failure.
You agree, Matt?
Generally, yes. I think, with the caveat that, you know, one of the reasons why we're sort of down on Zverev, I suppose, as a player relative to his ranking, is that we always think he's a bit vulnerable. Because we think there are a lot of players that can outplay him, and if Zverev doesn't play his best, I do think that brings in a Rublev, for example, who was brilliant against Alcaraz in Cincinnati, who finally has a potential Grand Slam quarter-final, not against a Djokovic or an Alcaraz or a Sinner. It's a chance here for Rublev to get through to his first semi-final. Alex de Minaur, again, I don't think that's a given for Alexander Zverev.
No, not a given.
But is in there, who's who's got a really good record against him. I absolutely think this is a good draw for Zverev.
Of the players he could have played.
Absolutely, and if he plays as he can, Zverev, I think he will get to the semis. But I'm just not 100% convinced that he will play as he can. And as David says, that would be kind of a failure, really, if he doesn't get to the semi-finals here.
So who we got winning this thing on the men's side? What are your semi-final, final lineups and champions?
I've got Sinner.
But you're also covering your bases with a big shock.
Well, that was in terms of whether Sinner or Alcaraz meet in the final. I'd be stunned if one of them doesn't win it.
Right.
We could potentially be in a situation where one of them gets shocked. I'd be really surprised if both of them lose here.
David?
I've got a Sinner Zverev semi-final and a Djokovic Alcaraz. I've got an Alcaraz Sinner final, and I've got Alcaraz winning the thing.
How far do you think we'd have to start polling around the media centre to find somebody not picking Sinner or Alcaraz for this title?
I think anybody who does is probably being quite contrarian. I think you could make arguments for Zverev and Djokovic, but look, they're so by far and away the best players in the world in men's tennis right now, Sinner and Alcaraz, that you're looking at injury or illness, I think, as the main reason for one of them not winning it.
And that's obviously not to say that we can't see a scenario where one of those two doesn't win the title. It's obviously sport and anything can happen, but to suggest that one of those two winning it isn't the most likely scenario is pretty ludicrous, really. Even for Disco David, who really is going to get called up onto stage pretty soon. So that's it for pot 2. Join us.
The stage just got closer. The beats got louder.
That's how volume works. That's how the volume knob works.
They want to get on the tennis podcast.
That's it for pot 2. Join us in pot 3 for more disco. Welcome back to part 3 of the tennis podcast, where we'll whiz you through a few notable results from qualifying. Unfortunately, Aoi Ito didn't make it, David.
Oh, that's a shame.
She still has a chance as a lucky loser. I don't want to wish anybody to have to pull out in the next 36 hours injured, but usually somebody does, and having lost in the final round of qualifying, she'd be in with a chance, but she did lose quite heavily in the final round of qualifying, hitting 0 winners.
Oh dear.
In fact, the stats from that match were so strange. We're not sure that they're putting the best people on qualifying stats compilation, because we're not quite sure how points were won on the basis of the stats.
There were basically no winners or unforced errors listed in the stats.
But anyway, sad for Aoi Ito fans like me. I'll tell you what though, Fran Jones, Britain's Fran Jones, has qualified for the main draw here for the first time. Her second time qualifying for the main draw of a slam. It's her fourth time playing the main draw of a slam, but that includes 2 Wimbledon wildcards. It's an extraordinary achievement for Fran Jones, who battles a number of physical situations that, as she said herself, I spoke to her today for Tennis Podcast Meets, and she was absolutely brilliant. She is a serious, proper, interesting person. She said everybody's got something. She said I'm not saying what I deal with is necessarily worse than anybody else, but it is different. She deals with a very particular set of physical circumstances, and she's She's incredible. She's qualified here without dropping a set, and she faces in round 1 Matt. I'm receiving this news live, but I can tell from Matt's face it's interesting.
Well, it's very Tennis Podcast coded. Ava Lees.
Is it?
It
wow.
is.
I did ask her as she was, after I'd stopped rolling and she was actually walking to her next interview, Fran Jones. Everybody wanted to speak to her after qualifying today. I said, when will you know, and would you rather big name, big court, or small name, small court, bigger chance of winning? And she said, honestly, I don't care. And quite often when players say that, I don't believe them for a second, but I did believe her. I really did believe her. And look, she's, as I say, she's not really like anybody else on tour, Fran Jones, and I big up my own work. It's her work, really. I'd say that's worth a listen in Tennis Podcast Meets, which should be going up tomorrow. We've done a few interviews today. David is accompanied Artur Rinderknecht to the locker room.
Yep. We
recorded it.
He was offering me a very short interview in the interview area, or a longer one if I accompanied him on his walk back to the locker room. So I told the latter. Had a lovely chat.
Walk-in talks can sometimes be... It's like sometimes you get into deep chats when you're in the car with somebody.
Yes.
It's something about that scenario it's a loosener.
We connected.
How loose was Artur?
Oh, he got there.
Yeah.
I tell you, so did I. We had a great time.
I'm looking forward to listening to that. And David and Matt had a 2-on-1 with Karen Hashanov.
Yes, we did. We had a lovely chat again. And that's the whole point of Tennis Podcast Meets, isn't it?
Yes. He's got Nishesh Basavaredi, incidentally, Hashanov in round 1. So yeah, and hopefully more interviews to come tomorrow for Tennis Podcast Meets, which will be going up for friends of the pod. We think tomorrow, unless anybody promises us a blockbuster interview. I think we can confidently say tomorrow. Are we confidently saying tomorrow?
Yep.
Yeah, we're not getting a one-on-one with Alcaraz.
Okay.
So
we haven't asked. Maybe we should be asking. Anyway, tomorrow for Friends of the Tennis Podcast. Last qualifying result I wanted to touch upon was Dino Prizmic. Remember that name?
Yes. Was it last year?
It was the opening day of last year's Australian Open.
When he pushed Novak Djokovic to 5 sets. I think he led him 2 sets.
5?
Or was
I think it was 4.
I think it was 4.
But he led him by a set and a break, maybe.
Match.
But it was the nature of them. He was so electrifying.
Yeah.
Really was.
And didn't Djokovic say it was like, looking in a mirror?
Yeah. And look, he's had injury in the period since then. There are reasons why he seems to have disappeared off the face of the earth. But I think it also just hasn't quite happened in the way we all thought on the basis of that performance. But my brother has had him in his fantasy team and has been tracking his progress very closely indeed, and has got a group chat name ready to go for when Dino Prizmic finally fulfills his talent, and it is good.
What would be fulfilling his talent?
I thought you were going to ask what the group chat name would be.
Well, I want to know that too, but...
You know.
I can't remember.
Dino soaring.
Okay, that's very good.
It's very good.
Now, what needs to happen in order for that to happen?
I mean, relative to the last 18 months, I'd say qualifying for a Grand Slam is soaring.
So we're in then?
We might be in.
Well, I think I'm going to say math. Change that group name if he beats Rublev, who he's drawn in
fun round 1.
That would be soaring.
Yeah.
It's funny how the group started out as Optimists.
That feels a long time ago. Yeah, that feels an awfully long time ago. The group's gone on a journey, and hopefully the destination is Dino soaring, because that would be a fun time. And I will make a point of watching Rublev against Prizmic, certainly some of it, in round 1. Have you seen that Marat Safin is in tow with Team Rublev?
Yes, he looks like he hasn't had a haircut in about 3 years.
I'd love to know what the contents of Safin's suitcase were. Like, what are these outfits? What did he think he was packing for? It was like me at the French Open, like, urgently order some trousers, Marat. Some proper trousers. It's fun though. It's a fun element to that dynamic. Okay, that's it for today's preview. We've got another preview to come tomorrow after we've spoken to Carlos Alcaraz and Iga Swiatek, and we'll have Charlie Eccleshare on tomorrow's show as well, and maybe the DJ will be back,
or hopefully not.
Yes, yeah, we'll see. TBC on the DJ, but we will definitely be here. Hello to our mascots, Phoebe, Maisie and Roger. Hello to you all. I saw Priyanka, Phoebe's owner, at the live show last night, and got some pictures of Phoebe. Always seems to be smiling, every single picture. What a mascot. So thank you, Priyanka, for coming to last night's show, and thank you actually everybody that came to last night's show. It was I haven't wanted to talk about it too much because I don't want to give people FOMO that wanted to come and weren't able to, but it was an incredibly special time, and we're very grateful to everybody that came and made it so. It was very overwhelming for us and really, really special, and our executive producer Greg was a very big part of that, making it happen. So thank you, Greg, top vote and executive producer, alongside Chris and Jeff. Hello to you. Let's have some shout outs, Matt.
We have Claire White from County Clare, Ireland.
Oh,
hi Claire.
Hello Claire from Clare.
And Claire says, after being lucky enough to get tickets to the Olympics last year, I was somehow successful in the ballots for both the French Open and Wimbledon.
Whoa, well done, Claire.
Claire, what are your tricks?
Clean it up.
I feel like Claire deserves something better than what we always produce, which is Claire Wood.
Yeah, Claire Liu.
Very good.
Sensational.
Very good. Any whites?
Anne White.
Yes.
Yes.
Who?
Of all-in-one white jumpsuit.
Pretty
faith.
iconic Anne White, in fact. Yeah.
Leotard.
There you go, Claire. Lovely stuff. Very jealous you got to go to the Olympics.
We've also got Owen McCroissant.
Hi, Owen.
Croissant?
As I said it, I thought, surely that can't be the correct pronunciation.
Owen
McCroissant.
Owen, you've reminded me that my favourite moment of today was when our subway broke down earlier.
Yeah, we struggled to get into Queens today.
Yeah, we were on that subway for sort of over an hour. It was a pretty dark moment. I remembered that I had a croissant in my bag. It was just such a pick-me-up.
You made a very similar noise as when Sara Rani hit an underarm serve. The whole subway.
It was the boost that I needed. So thank you for reminding me of that, Owen. Tennis. I'm going to assume there's no tennis.
Davidson.
Yes.
The Australian tennis player who sadly died a couple of years ago and was a doubles partner, mixed doubles partner of Billie Jean King.
Yes.
And they won numerous mixed doubles Grand Slam titles together.
Very good. Very good. Thank you, Owen.
And finally, we have Matthias Soup.
Hello, Matthias.
Hey, Matthias.
It's a real food theme to my pronunciation of these names. I feel more confident about this one. Matthias Soup.
You're going to have to produce a tennis Matthias, David, or else I will end up telling the story of my brother's German exchange
that is
student
what Matthias
again.
Says.
Yeah.
He says, I'm still not the famous German exchange student from Catherine's youth, but a long-time fan of the pod from Stockholm.
Come on, tennis Matthias.
Well, I know lots of players from Stockholm, if that helps, or at least from Sweden. I mean, alongside Stefan Edberg, of course. I always remember when I was a young lad liking Henrik Sundström. I remember thinking, what a name that is, from Sweden. And Joachim Nyström. My word, did they have some good names in Sweden.
We've got Mattia Bellucci.
Bellucci, very good. Yes. Matthias Backinger.
Yes, I remember him. Yeah.
I have Googled that.
No, I remember it.
I should declare.
I don't think 90s, no. I think more recent. Yeah.
Hang on. Stand by. He has a Wikipedia. He is 38 years old.
Told you.
Wow.
See?
He is now retired. He retired in 2023.
Yep.
There we go. Thank you, Matthias. Again. Thank you to all of our friends of the Tennis Podcast. We will be back tomorrow. If you'd like to become a friend of the Tennis Podcast and get to listen to our upcoming episode of Tennis Podcast Meets, then the link, as always, will be in our show notes. We are part of the Athletic Podcast Network. Thank you for listening. We'll be back tomorrow.